What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique of the Fight Guys. I'm also a Forbes contributor and I write for Heavy.com, and I am joined by my fellow Fight Guy, fellow Forbes contributor, and Boxing Manager of the Year candidate, Peter Kahn. How are you doing today, Mr. Kahn?
Brian, doing great. End of the week, Friday, May 15th. More UFC tomorrow, so combat sports fans should be happy.
Absolutely. We are powered by Fight TV and presented by Bet Online. Make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel, like the video as well, and also click that notifications bell so that you will know when new videos are dropping. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into round one. All right. So as you said, coming up tomorrow, the third UFC event in 8 days, all taking place at VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida. If I type VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena one more time, I think something's going to happen. Or say it, one of the two. I'm typing it and saying it so much right now. This is totally crazy. So this card is really quite, it's in flux. As of, the last I checked, I feel like Nipsey Hussle when I said, last time that I checked. That's okay.
Rest in peace.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. But this card is, thankfully the top portion of it is pretty much locked in. We know that the main event is Alistair Overeem against Walt Harris. Very interesting fight. Obviously, this is the first time Walt Harris has fought since his daughter was murdered. It was actually less than 6 months ago. So he contemplated not coming back, not fighting again. He's decided to go on and fight in her memory and in her honor. And his first assignment is against Alistair Overeem, a perennial heavyweight contender. I was thinking about something. This might actually be something that we explore in the future. Who are the greatest UFC fighters to have never won a championship? And Alistair Overeem made me think about that because he is one of the guys. He's 45 and 18, been around forever, been in the ring or octagon with just about everybody you can think of, but he's never won a UFC title. So he definitely is in that conversation. But so clearly Walt Harris is facing a tough opponent. I was a little bit concerned because Walt Harris weighed in right about 265 this morning, which is a little high for him, and it's right at the ceiling of what they allow for heavyweights in the UFC. So that one's going to be interesting. The co-main event is Claudia Gadelha taking on Angela Overkill Hill. Now check this out. Back in the day with boxers, right? Guys used to fight 10, 11 times a year early, especially early in their careers. Well, Angela Hill is going for that same level of activity in mixed martial arts. Do you realize over the last 14 months, she's fought this will be her 7th fight in 14 months. That's a lot of fighting.
What's her record?
Over that time, well, she's on a 3-fight win streak, which is she's doing really well, which is how she ended up claiming this spot. But over that time, actually, she is. I'll tell you in a second what her record is during her little run here. But it's funny because she's usually at her best when she's this active. So dating this back to, I guess, February of 2018. During that time period, she is 5-3. But like I said, she's won 3 fights in a row.
But I'm asking you, what is her overall record?
Oh, her overall record is 12-7.
And when was her pro debut?
Her pro debut was back in 2014.
Okay, yeah. But I'm going somewhere with this. So this 7th fight is all UFC?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Yes. Yeah. She's been
that's even more interesting.
It is like her level of activity is almost unprecedented. The only person who really approaches that level of activity at any point is Donald Cerrone. Angela Hill's been fighting in the UFC since 2014. She's also the first African-American female ever in the UFC. So she is.
But when you look at it compared to the men, and the frequency in which they fight, this is it's odd. But it's insane. The thing of it is I don't, But do you know what makes it more odd though, Brian?
What's that?
7 times in 12 months?
14, yeah.
In 14 months?
Yeah.
She's in perpetual fight camp.
All the time.
You know what I'm saying? That's the strangest. Like that, the more interesting part is that she's from fight right back into camp.
Right back into camp. But this is what she wants. And she said that. Yeah, she said that. And she fights strawweight. So she said that she's like, I'm better when I never stop. And so this is what's happening. And so she's got a tough one tonight, though, Saturday night against Claudia Gadelha, former strawweight UFC championship challenger. And, one of the best wrestlers overall. If you want to get an opportunity to see what my odds and prediction picks for this fight and several others, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. That information is there. I did video on every single fight. The third fight, the fight, two fights removed from the main event, is Edson Barboza against Dan Ige. Pretty interesting fight. Edson Barboza is dropping down the featherweight. He has never lost 3 fights in a row in his career. He is faced with possibly doing that now. This is an absolute must-win fight for him against Dan Ige. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good fight. I don't think there's any person in the world who is a deadlier striker than Edson Barboza. Nobody gets kicks from point A to point B faster than him, but he is older, and he does have some wear on those tires. So it's going to be interesting to see how well he handles a bigger weight cut and a tough fight. Now, I know he's following the lead of his good friend Jose Aldo, who successfully dropped down to bantamweight and looked good doing it, but everybody's not built the same. So we'll see how that works. So it's going to be an interesting fight for sure. Make sure you guys tune in on Saturday night after the card. I'll be doing a full recap as I did for UFC Fight Night 171. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, before you jump into between the rounds, I want to make sure, I wanted to kind of chime in and say something.
Sure.
When you talked about the Walt Harris fight and him being almost at the limit. Mm-hmm. So, something that I've heard from people that work with some of the guys that fought in the first show back, the UFC 249, mm-hmm. And then even the second show, right, that a lot of guys that felt like, the short preparation time, the unique environment in which they were limited in training, although they felt going into the fights that it wouldn't be a problem. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, some of them winners and losers, mm-hmm. not just those that lost, right, said that they fell off. Mm. And so when you mentioned, Walt Harris, who works with perfecting athletes, who, when you're talking about his weight, I wonder if it's strategic, based on feedback that he might have gotten from other fighters. And so maybe the weight is some way to compensate or provide an advantage. It just came to mind.
Yeah. And heavyweight, you have so much more room for the fluctuation. You know what I mean? So to come in heavier right at that top ceiling could, like you said, makes good sense. And I did not know that he was a client of Perfecting Athletes. So because I know the precise work that they do with their fighters,
it's all strategic.
I would not be had I realized that before I said that, I would not have actually even been as concerned, because it's gotten to the point that, from listening to guys like Jamel Herring talk, and Xander and Amir Imam and Tony Ferguson,
Crawford, all these guys,
all these people who are dealing with Perfecting Athletes. It would shock me if Walt Harris was just off from a nutritional standpoint.
Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, and really Amanda.
How does he benefit being right at the because he probably cut right to the limit, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, here's the thing. Walt's a better athlete than Overeem, especially at this stage of their life. Walt's a really good athlete, period. Walt played college basketball. He's just a good athlete. He's quick and explosive. And I figured he'd have the speed advantage to begin with. Maybe that's already been, accounted for, and they're saying, if you carry this extra weight, you're still gonna be faster. You just be that bigger and tougher. Because I talked about this in my preview of this fight. Overeem would be really smart to try to take this fight to the ground. I know he is primarily a striker, But I think that Walt is a better striker than him and more dangerous. I think Overeem could make this a boring fight if he takes Walt down. Walt does not do well off his back, does not grapple well. So perhaps Walt wanted to be a little heavier so that he could handle himself better in those clinches. So that would make some sense. We'll see how it goes. Plans have a
sorry to cut you off. I just want to kind of
that's actually a very good addition, and I like that. Something else to think about, because actually one of our commenters asked me in the preview and prediction piece. He said, "Are you concerned that Walt weighed in at just about 265?" So clearly he probably wasn't privy to that information as well. So it's going to be interesting. So we'll see. Let's go into our first between the rounds.
So, Brian, one of the things that fascinated me in the most recent UFC fight, the one that took place on Wednesday, was that with this no audience environment during Anthony Smith's fight, when they went to the corner in between rounds and the cameras are right there and the corner's there, where he's talking about his teeth being losing teeth, and his trainer then saying, breathe in, don't pant. I felt like we were getting a really good, fly on the wall look, more than normal, more than usual. When you have the crowd noise and the commentators chiming in, I felt like we were really in the corner with them. In a moment where that ice pack's right on the face, he's talking about losing teeth. They've got a minute to get him ready to go back out. Something that I thought about was, I wonder if this is going to be a value add, right? Added value for the viewer that's watching this, kind of compensating without that fan energy, really hearing and seeing what goes on. Because even though you can normally catch this during their traditional broadcast, it just seemed to be amplified during this particular broadcast. It felt like we were closer to being almost like leaning in the corner with them because of the lack of that ambient sound that was going on. So I'm wondering if moving forward, if this is going to be something that's going to be enhanced for the viewers that are at home, and become like this other element where it was entertaining. I found it to be entertaining, not just with that fight, but I just found it to be entertaining overall. I was more engaged, I think, in the entire fight, even in between rounds, because I guess there was also less distraction from audience reaction, which is a two-way street. It's that helps feed the energy of the fight. Sometimes guys trading, something big happens, that energy from the crowd can inspire a fighter to come back. It could inspire a fighter to move forward. I mean, so what I'm saying is, and I want your opinion in championship rounds, really, how does this play out moving forward? Is it something that eventually when crowds come back, they might want to think of emphasizing it and finding a way to provide more of those, added value, assets to the broadcast?
I really, I can't wait to respond to that, because I have a couple of things. I had to make a couple of notes to make sure I didn't forget what I wanted to say. But yeah, it's a ton to unpack there. So I will definitely get into that once we get into the championship rounds. Let's jump into round 2. All right. Since we're talking about Wednesday night's UFC Fight Night 171, I would be remiss not to cover the absolute failure of Anthony Smith's corner, which consists of a UFC fighter, the James Krause. Mark Montoya is one of his other coaches. He's one who spoke after the fight, and the referee, Jason Herzog.
Okay.
So let me preface this by saying, in case this is the first time you've seen us, the first time you've seen me speak, not aware or familiar with anything that I've written or anything like that, I am not a newbie when it comes to combat sports. I'm not the type of person that goes, ugh, if I see somebody get punched too hard. I understand what this is. But there is no entertainment value at all when a fighter is clearly beaten and given signal after signal after signal that they are done. And neither the referee nor their corner picks up any of these signals that seemingly hundreds of other thousands of people are picking up, and nobody saves this person from themselves. Fighters are warriors, and they do not want to quit, because quitting ultimately affects them moving forward. It affects the way they're categorized. It affects the way people talk about them. And it just damages something within their psyche that they need to continue to compete. Because that is there and necessary, the corner and the referee's job is to protect the fighter from having to do that and from taking punishment. And on Wednesday night, Jason Herzog and his corner both failed.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at what some of the reaction was, it was so many people that were corroborating that story. I don't know. I know you saw it because you were talking about what you saw in the middle in between rounds. What did you think?
Well, Brian, I think that, like you said, in mixed martial arts and boxing, fighters are warriors.
Yeah.
And they want to go out on their shield. And sometimes for honor, they need the corner to step in and make that decision to help them save face.
Yeah.
Because they will go out at their own detriment. They will go back out. And there are times when they will give subtle things like, my teeth are loose, or just the physical body language.
Yes.
Maybe saying, I've had enough. And it's for the corner to pick up on that and even ask the question. Whisper in the ear. Don't embarrass them. Whisper in the ear. Do you want me to call it? Are you okay? Look them in the eyes, whisper in the ear. Man, I've been a part of that a lot, because you want to help them save face.
Absolutely.
And in boxing, we've seen the referee, do you want to continue? And what the fighter does is makes believe they didn't hear. They just stare at the referee, and the referee knows that means the referee's going to call it. We've seen this.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen a guy jump up at the count of 9.5 and just miss 10? Right?
Yeah.
Or even in a corner where the corner, the chief trainer, head trainer, knows their fighter. And they know from comments or reactions, they know when it's time to call it off. So, there's a point where if you're taking too much punishment, and it's already known that you're not going to win this fight, and that you're not a guy that's all of a sudden going to provide a one-punch KO, because you've proven to do this time and time again, and there's no saving yourself, and you've run out of time to realistically win a decision or think you're going to submit someone, it's time for the corner to step in and say, enough's enough. We live to fight another day.
Absolutely.
And help the fighter save face.
Absolutely. I mean, I was pissed.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I was pissed because I felt like not only did they violate Anthony Smith, I felt like they violated the viewers too, because there's an unwritten agreement, right? And there's an unwritten rule that we all know, that we're watching something that, these guys are fighting. These fighters are fighting. And so we know that there are certain things that can happen in a fight, and we understand that.
Right.
But we watch this as a sport and not just like some guys in the alley. Right. And there are people who are put into place to make sure that the sport is maintained.
Right.
And when you don't do your job in those areas, and we talked about this with Dominic Cruz and Keith Peterson, and what Herb Dean said, he said, this is a very serious job that we do.
Yeah.
And as a viewer, I'm depending on Jason Herzog, Herb Dean, to step in and make sure that you maintain my entertainment value, because the moment this becomes a one-sided beatdown where somebody's just taking punishment, it's no longer entertaining.
Right.
It's no longer entertaining. Right. And it would be
this is not there.
And now I'm just watching somebody get beat on, it would be different, right? If, okay, somebody will throw out at me, you know, and I always like to play devil's advocate whenever I take a hard line stance with something.
Right.
But there'll be somebody who will look at me and say, oh, well, you don't fight, which they don't know, you know, what I do or what I've done or whatever. But they'll say that, right? Because I do what I do. You don't fight. Well, it would be different if I was the only one saying this. Daniel Cormier sitting octagon side doing commentary. He takes to Twitter right there and says this fight should have been stopped. His corner and Jason Herzog failed him. This fight should have been stopped. A long line. Platinum Mike Perry is one of the toughest, brawlingest guys you ever want to find. He tweets the same thing. Michael Chiesa tweets the same thing. Just fighter after fighter after fighter is saying this. So now everybody else is wrong and Jason Herzog and Mark Montoya and D. James Krause is right? No.
And Brian, for the viewers and fans out there that watch us, you know, Brian has been covering mixed martial arts. Not only does he write about combat sports for Forbes and Heavy, and you know, here in the Fight Guys, but he's also an avid fan. He's very knowledgeable. And so, you know, he also looks to protect the sport. This isn't just like people say, well, you haven't fought. It's like saying for every single one of them that watches NFL on Sunday and has opinion, well, you never played. Mm-hmm. You know, it's silly.
It's always the disqualification comments. Always. Right.
You don't have to. I didn't fight professionally, but I'm doing a pretty good job within my role in the sport. Mm-hmm. Because it's just the experience. You don't need to be a rocket scientist sometimes to know what we're watching.
As a matter of fact, to piggyback on what you're saying, sometimes the more you know can sometimes give you tunnel vision and blinders, and you don't realize every other person who participates in the sport. And I say that about Dominic Cruz. Like Dominic Cruz was a fighter.
There's a term that we use.
What's that?
A lot in boxing. We get desensitized.
Absolutely. And you know, Dominic Cruz I accuse him of the same kind of concept. And I don't think it's something he purposely does, but it's just like, I've been living and breathing this sport for as long as I live. And this is the way I look at it. And because I'm the one that's doing it, everything else you say doesn't matter. Well, no, that's not true, because you are not in this alone. You're in the octagon alone, but the entire sport is bigger than you. The entire sport is bigger than this fight you just had. And whether or not you want to discredit a fan or not, put it like this. If no fans are watching you, you might as well just be doing backyard fights and getting paid whatever you're getting paid for that. And if no media is covering you,
right.
So you can say what you want.
Yeah. But we do understand, Brian, that there's a lot of pride.
Absolutely.
But you have a lot of pride. Sometimes you got to protect them from themselves.
Exactly. That's my whole point. And I just felt that fight should have been stopped. And it's not like this is the only time. Yeah. And it's not like this is the only time I've ever seen that. I've seen Mario Yamasaki literally let Valentina Shevchenko just pound a lady's face for it was this one. That one was still worse than what happened with Anthony Smith on Wednesday. That was literally the most egregious non-stoppage I've ever seen.
Right. And Brian, to prove our point, mm-hmm. We've complained numerous times about early stoppages.
Yeah, you know what though? I don't.
I'm just saying that
I don't complain about those as much as most people. I do sometimes, but
I'm saying is
out of caution.
I understand, but what I'm saying is we also have entered the conversation mm-hmm. when we felt like that a fight was stopped too soon without cause.
Yeah, like one fight that in boxing that I felt like was stopped too early was Meldrick Taylor Chavez. And Taylor,
too early. There was 1 second left in the fight.
Right, 1 second left in the fight. I mean, Taylor was rocked out of his mind, but it was 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
What was going to happen in 2 seconds?
Well, ask Richard Steele.
Yeah, well, you know how that is. So that was my take on that. I had to let that out. You know, I had to let that out. I'm sure my wife is tired of hearing me tell that story because.
But you know what, Brian? We need people to leave comments as well because we want to know what you think. You know, you guys watch the same things we watch. We want to know what your thoughts on that fight and you know, and that topic overall.
For sure, 100%. All right, so let's jump into our next Between the Rounds. So, Peter, I know you got a lot to say about this, but it looks like it just might happen. It looks like it just might happen.
Oh,
This conversation is
I'm going to keep shut.
up.
I'm going to be quiet now, and then I'll answer later.
Yes, the conversation is picking up. Mike Tyson is talking comeback. He's doing social media posts. He's growling, throwing punches. Evander Holyfield's jogging out there in Florida. He's throwing shadow punches. He's doing it, right? My man MMA Roasted had one of the most hilarious tweets ever. He says that rumor has it that Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield are actually going to fight, and it's going to be broadcast on the History Channel. That's funny. I don't care. I'm a huge Mike Tyson fan and a huge Evander Holyfield fan. I love them both, but that's funny.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't want to see this happen. I really don't. I would prefer that my last images of Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield in the ring is whatever happened the last time they were there, which neither of them ended the way they would like to have ended. I mean, if they're going to do it, I mean, you know what? I really don't understand. And you can tell me your answer to this. You know, I should say that about an hour ago, there was a report that Evander Holyfield is kind of like backing off the whole concept. Like, you know, maybe I'm not so super serious. I don't know. But, you know, I don't want this. I just don't want this. Actually, Evander Holyfield won his last fight. He TKO'd Brian Nielsen in 2011.
Right.
Actually, Evander, you know, he didn't have a loss in his last 3 fights. So, I mean,
was John Ruiz's last loss?
No, Nikolai Valuev was his last loss. Majority decision to a 7-foot Russian.
Yeah, tall.
Yeah, and then he lost a unanimous decision before that to Sultan Ibragimov.
Yeah, Ibragimov.
So I don't need to see this happen. Here's what I don't know why this doesn't happen, and you can tell me, you know, what your thoughts of it is. Mike Tyson seems to have a real passion for training. He really does seem to have I mean, you can look at him. He's like, he's really enjoying it. And who has more credibility to train than Mike Tyson? To at least somebody. I mean, you want to know the truth? Mike Tyson starts training somebody, whoever that is becomes a star, or at least gets some buzz simply because they're the heavyweight that Mike Tyson is training.
Right.
So I would love to see him do that, you know, but I would not love to see him get punched again. That's just me. Right. So I want to hear what you got to say in the championship rounds, but that's where I'm at with it. I know you do. And let's go into round 3. What time is it?
Ask the fight guys.
Well, see, as a Bulls fan, you're supposed to say, you're not a Bulls fan, but you're supposed to, somebody says, what time is it? You're supposed to say, game time.
No, it's ask the fight guys time.
Okay. Fight o'clock.
I'm going to say it.
It's
you,
fight
you
o'clock.
can do your thing, but I'm going to stick to
o'clock.
ask the fight guys.
You're supposed to say it's fight o'clock.
Fight o'clock.
See, you forgot about the old school.
Try it again.
Okay, let's do it again. What time is it?
Fight o'clock.
Okay, you are the king of no sale. Like, it is just, you killed it.
Is fight o'clock.
It is fight o'clock. Okay, it's ask the fight guys time.
Yes.
And you know, I'm a little bit wondering. Wow, you know, I need you guys to, you know, you guys don't want to ask us questions. You want to say mean things to Peter.
Actually, I haven't taken any flack in a while.
You haven't, which is pretty
in
good.
A while. I've peaked.
You haven't been stunned by a bee?
Stunned.
That's what I said. Stunned.
Yeah. I didn't even understand what that meant.
Boom! You guys, bee walked up to you. Boom!
Yeah.
And you guys.
What? Yeah.
I got stunned.
Get it.
Man. Yeah, I got you. All right, but we do have a question from a hilarious person.
Okay, I can't wait to hear it.
This question comes from Peter Kahn. With the idea of Lomachenko versus Lopez all but not happening next, and each fighter openly talking about having a voluntary title defense in the interim, do you think that George Kambosos Jr. would be a good matchup for Lopez in a non-audience environment as a TV-friendly competitive matchup? I'm asking for a friend. Well, first of all, this particular viewer is my least favorite of all the viewers that we've ever had in the history of the world.
I mean, it was a great question, and you know what?
It was very specific.
I'm going to take it on.
I should.
I mean, considering he's asking for a friend, the least we could do is tell this Peter Kahn that, you know, I think it's a great fight. I think that if you're going to pick somebody in the interim in the top 15 in the world ratings, why not pick the guy who's the highest rated contender?
So give us some insight. What is going on with Kambosos Selby?
All right. So all seriousness, I do manage George Kambosos Jr. Yes. I did ask that question. But it is realistic. I know we've heard about Teofimo fighting Devin Haney. That's not a fight for behind closed doors. Okay. Nothing against my client. Okay. Meaning, you know, but Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez, that does, I believe, sell out a venue. I think you can make a strong argument. I think there's also some hurdles there as far as where that broadcast takes place. Because you have Teofimo Lopez with Top Rank, which would have to be ESPN. Right. And you have Devin Haney with Matt, which would have to be the Zone. I just think there's a lot of things that have to be worked out. And then considering that happens with no live gate, there could be a nice, healthy live gate. So both fighters, meaning Lomachenko and Lopez, they're going to have to fight. They just can't sit on their hands indefinitely. Okay. The sanctioning bodies are going to want a title defense. They just can't be sitting on all those belts amongst the two of them, waiting for them to fight, because the longer the time goes by, the less likely we are of seeing them fighting each other without some activity. So George Kambosos Jr. was scheduled to fight Lee Selby on May 9th in Cardiff for the IBF lightweight eliminator. The winner would be the mandatory to face Teofimo Lopez for the IBF belt. Well, obviously that was going to, regardless of what happens, let's say that fight took place, George smashes Selby, he's the mandatory. Well, he's sitting there in line guaranteed to fight for the IBF title. Let's say Lopez fought Lomachenko, whatever happens, let's say the winner vacates that belt. For whatever reason, they move up in weight, whatever the case is. Well, then George would still be fighting for the vacant title against the next highest rated contender. So my point is, which is who? I don't know. Could be another one of the guys I manage. That's what, Emmanuel Tego. But anyway, but you know, point that I'm making is that Lopez and Kambosos would be an exciting fight to give the fans. Meaning, it's a very competitive, high energy, type A alpha male personalities that would no doubt leave it all in the ring and would provide, I think, the fans their money's worth for having to watch a world title fight at home with no audience. Whereas I definitely think that it would be a fan-friendly fight week and fight night with a lot of hype. I also believe that this is the type of fight that Top Rank can easily make, because George is with DeBella Entertainment. There's zero impediment into making this fight happen. I talked to Teofimo's manager yesterday, who said, exact words, I'm not opposed to that fight. Now, it would have to take place in the United States, but he's not opposed to that fight. So, you know, while we're sitting here and while guys eventually want to get back in the ring and fighting and defending world titles and have some optics of normalcy, I think it's a great fight. Now, look, we're fine. We're sitting pretty. Either way, we have a path to the title. Right. So we can wait. We'll fight Selby, beat Selby, and now we're the mandatory. It makes more sense financially because as the mandatory, guess what Top Rank doesn't get if George beats Lopez? They don't get, you can't mandate options or a rematch clause with the mandatory. So let's say we go to purse bid. Right. What if we win that bid? Lopez isn't fighting on ESPN. It's better to make the deal now. We'll give you some options. You know what I'm saying? It's a better business deal now than having to deal with someone that's in a mandatory position for many reasons.
Yeah.
Well, I want your thoughts, and not because I'm,
Yeah. Better to better to voluntarily fight him than to fight him as the mandatory, because you have more wiggle room with the overall concept. And so I mean, I definitely think it's a fight that works in any time period. We've gone over this several times, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit in the championship rounds. More and more every day, I'm more a proponent of trying one of these fights that appears to be one that you wouldn't have without fans. Mm-hmm. Every day I'm becoming more and more encouraged that it would be worth a shot.
Right.
So I'm not one that feels like certain fight has to happen this way or that way or whatever. I mean, I can kind of get with it if we're talking about like Canelo, Triple G. I can kind of get with it there. But these other guys who are on the upper second tier, I don't know. I'd be willing to try. So we'll see. But that was definitely good information about, because I'm not sure how many people know that Campos Selby probably isn't happening.
Well, it's happening. It's just a matter of when, meaning they can't make it not happen.
Right. Okay.
But if we have the opportunity to step in and, fight for the world title, because this is what could happen. Mm-hmm. Let's say that he takes an interim fight. Mm-hmm. Then let's say he goes and fights Lomachenko. If they're granting him a voluntary, it's going to have to be against the highest rated guy. Otherwise, you're now putting the very purpose of becoming the mandatory further down the line.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
My platform, I can use it to self-promote a little bit.
Hey, you use it to tell the truth.
But it's not unreasonable. This is not far-fetched. I mean, we're already in line to become the mandatory. So, I mean, it's a very real option if that's something that they will do.
Obviously, Selby won't particularly like you skipping him at the time, but
you know what? Here's the deal. He fights the guy right behind him then for the mandatory.
Yeah.
He's still protected. And by the way, he's number one in the WBO.
Yeah.
How do we know he's not going to bail on us and fight Lomachenko in a optional?
Yeah. Same deal could apply.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Let's go into our championship rounds. Okay, so we talked about the benefits of a fanless, or we were talking about one of the benefits you saw in the fanless environment at UFC Fight Night 171. And I just mentioned how I feel like more and more I'm getting more comfortable with this concept.
Right.
I think that boxing people really should have been watching, like you were,
right?
How those fights went over. There were a lot of people who said that they actually enjoyed what I would describe as that intimacy that you described with the actual environment, with the action. You can hear everything. You can hear punches, you can hear trash talk, you can hear just in octagon rhetoric. You can hear all of that stuff. You can hear panting. Like you could literally start to hear when somebody got tired because you could pick up the breath. And the situation in the corner when you were describing with Anthony Smith, man, I even know a way they can monetize that. You monetize that from a presentation standpoint, but you get somebody to brand the in-corner audio. And you're talking about, so how can we bring that into the future of combat sports when you go into the corner? Obviously, there's times where a mic is there, but that focused singular sound in the way that it comes in with no fans does offer a different experience. If you get a sponsor to monetize the corner, I mean, you could sell each one. Each corner gets a different sponsor, especially in the UFC where you have the red corner, the blue corner, every single fight. You can sell the monetization to that. And that is like, for essentially what my mind has been on, and then part of this is because of the conversations that you and I have. My mind has been on how much can you monetize this particular environment?
Right.
How can you try to make up as much as what you will miss from a live gate as possible? And to me, the bigger the live gate is, the size of the live gate is dictated by the size of the fight. And so if this is a huge fight, big stars, obviously you're charging much more for tickets. The venue is bigger, holds more people, blah, 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 ends up being a bigger amount. So in my mind, that fight then still has higher appeal from a pay-per-view standpoint, which then, brings the option to have more fans, more people buying in to see it. So then to me, that would drive up ad prices as well. So if you find as many spots that you can advertise and that you can monetize in the entire presentation, you're able to charge more for it. Like I said, I don't know that you could ever get to a point where you're duplicating a $19 million gate and all kinds of ridiculous, crazy gates that you see sometimes for the biggest fights. But I think most fights, you could get somewhere close with creative advertising and sponsorship, because this is a different whole thing. I mean, if you see the ratings that the ESPN is delivering right now for the few sports that they're producing, it's through the roof.
What was the viewership on Wednesday's UFC fight?
They haven't. I don't know if that dropped yet. Let me double check and see.
I'm curious about Wednesday. I'm not expecting a pay-per-view number yet for Saturday.
Right.
But I'm expecting to see if they maybe posted a rating that they
usually do for that. Let's see.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything has been posted. I wonder why, because usually it's only Friday.
I mean, we know it's going to be good. I mean, we know it's going to be good.
We know it's going to be good, because I mean, if you were watching sports, what else were you watching on Wednesday night? So
you can always tell, Brian, you can gauge a viewership based on the social media activity.
Absolutely. And there were several trending topics from UFC Fight Night 171. So I'm expecting a good number. I'm expecting, honestly, over 1 million viewers. Right. Well, you know what? Maybe not, because you know why the numbers aren't out yet? I forgot. This was a whole entire ESPN Plus.
Okay.
So it's behind them. So that's why the numbers aren't out yet. Right. ESPN will have to release those numbers. It's not going to be coming through Nielsen the same way some of the other ones will. So, but yeah, I mean, I agree. There are some definite benefits watching from a fanless environment. It just gives a totally different sort of I'm going to be honest. There were times during UFC Fight Night 171 and 249 that I forgot that there were no fans. I forgot, because I'm just watching the fight, and I'm gonna be honest. I can't really say I missed it. I'm not saying I want them to go to no fans even when COVID-19 breaks, but I don't think that the experience is as affected as people think it will be. You can't deny, if I can't sell 15,000 tickets for an average of $500 a ticket, you can't deny that. That's just numbers. So that has to be compensated for in some way, shape, or form. Right. But I think that there may be a way. You just have to get creative. Somebody's gonna have to take a risk. Dana White took a risk. Vince McMahon took a risk even doing these events. Somebody's got to take a risk on the next level to see how you can maximize the situation. Right. So let's go to our second championship round, and this is about Mike Tyson and Holyfield. And I know this is your dream fight.
Stop it. So first of all, in my office, I have a beautiful, beautiful framed program with the cover of Tyson-Holyfield 1. It says finally. I have 2 unused $1,500 ringside seats framed, my credential with my name on it, all access promoter, my business card with Don King Productions. I've already seen that. And by the way, that's Rocky.
Rocky, what is Rocky? Is mad.
Yeah, listen, you don't want to let Rocky get angry.
Yeah.
Okay. Rocky can get angry. So listen, we've already seen the first fight. Great stoppage by Evander Holyfield. Really just very exciting fight. This is 1990, what was that, 7? 96, 97? The first one.
Is it? I'm sure you have a fantastic memory for the years for those, especially because you were more than likely there.
I was there, yeah.
Yeah. Tyson-Holyfield won with 96.
Right, 96. So then the second one, where I actually, undeniably set up the training camp for Mike Tyson in Boca Raton, Florida, per Don King wanting to keep Mike close, set up round one boxing gym from scratch, brought Mike in there for his training camp.
Right.
There was then an injury. It was postponed, and then they finally fought, and Mike was disqualified for biting off Evander Holyfield's ear.
Right.
We've seen those two fight twice.
Yeah.
Arguably in their primes.
Yeah.
I don't understand why anyone would want to see them fight again at 53 and 57, or is Evander 58?
57.
At 53 and 57, I don't understand what the interest would be. We already saw them fight in two scheduled 12-round fights in their primes, and the second, both being historic fights. Okay.
Yeah.
And now I don't understand the logic from the fighter standpoint or the fan standpoint.
Let me say this, because I just found a quote from Evander, and he's talking about it, and he pretty much lays down his conditions for it. So they asked him, they said, it sounds like a play fight. And Holyfield said, I would do that. Yes, I want to fight Mike Tyson. My whole thing is I'm open, and I know that I want to do well for myself at age 57. I can definitely handle him, but Mike would have to want to do it as well. We have to come up with something that is not a knockout grudge match. It's not about who can beat who, but to show people we were some of the greatest fighters in our era, and we've come together as men to do something for others. I don't have anything against Mike personally. The thing is, I think it would be good for the sport. And even though boxing is a rough sport, we can show people we can come together. If we do this fight, it would be great. I can still shoot the jab. I can still shoot the shots, but not like a killing thing. Not like I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to show you that I can. I'm going to show you that I can knock him out. Mike is looking sharp, but I'm in very good condition and shape physically and mentally. And if the money is right too, then let's get it on. I know he's getting offers from all types of people. Since we have both announced a comeback, a fight between me and Mike would definitely be the fight people want to see. That sounds like somebody that is straddling the fence, and he's definitely willing to do it. He kind of sounds like in the back of his mind, he knows this. Yeah, this is kind of a little bit dangerous, so I want to pull back some. But they're both guys who are competitive, and some shots get to throwing in there.
Well, Brian, here's what I hear. I hear a guy that wants to get paid for little risk.
Yeah, man, I don't blame him.
That's what I understand, but that's what I hear. Now, the $20 million offer
from
that we read about from Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship to Mike Tyson, with Mike being able to choose an opponent of his choice. Maximum 10 minutes of fighting, picking your own opponent. That's more appealing to me than watching him and Evander fight again.
I don't want to see Mike. I don't want.
I don't know if I want to see anybody fight, actually.
Yes, not Mike.
But I just said more appealing. I've already seen Tyson Holyfield 1 and 2. I've seen it.
It's kind of
in
like
their prime.
If I have to see Mike lose to a guy, I'd rather see him lose to another old guy than to see a younger guy.
Who said he has to fight a younger guy?
Well, I mean, yeah, because he's older than Shannon. He's older than Shannon. He's older than Hector Lombard.
I'm not talking about that. Why does it have to be a boxer?
Well, it's somebody from Bare Knuckle. I guess they'd have to sign somebody.
How old Bobby Gunn?
Bobby Gunn. I forget. But that's pretty funny. Is it Bobby Tommy Gunn or Tommy? What is it? Bobby Gunn. How old is Bobby Gunn? Bobby Gunn is 46.
I mean, it's in the wheelhouse.
Bobby Gunn looks a lot like Pat Barry. Pat Barry is he's Rose Namajunas' husband, and he used to fight heavyweight in UFC.
You know what? I'm throwing in the towel in this conversation.
I'm just saying.
I just threw in the towel on this whole topic.
Yeah, I wish that you were in Anthony Smith's corner on Wednesday. Perhaps we could have used that same.
Honestly, that's all I got on this topic.
I understand,
and I said a lot. And I said a lot.
You said a lot. You probably said too much, but it's okay. We're used to it. I gave myself a high five.
I heard that.
So that's all we have for you today. We appreciate you watching as always.
Subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe. Do it because I said it, not because Peter, because his instructions are generally things you should not follow. Don't forget to like the video and also click the notifications bell so that you'll know when new videos are dropping. As always, from my man Peter Kahn, I appreciate you watching. God bless and peace.